Hey guys, it's JJ. Welcome back to the Texans franchise. It's the season recap. We're gonna look at some stats and numbers, awards, playoff picture. But first up, individual stats of our Texans. Davis Mills, almost 5,000 yards, but he had only 54% completion percentage. There were a few big plays in there, but overall I think it was kind of an average season. For the running game, we had a 1,000-yard rusher, Dameon Pierce, made that happen in the last game, and Marlon Mack was kind of disappointing. So both of them together produced more than 1,400 yards, but that's not enough. The yards per carry is kind of misleading because Dameon Pierce had a few big games in there, and a lot of games where he had just like 2 or 3 yards a carry. So yeah, running game was not going anywhere this year, and that's an area we need to improve. Receiving, we have Brandon Cooks at 1,264 and 8 touchdowns. He had a few big plays. It's the problem with the X receiver because he is we have a bad offensive line, and the routes Brandon Cooks is running often are like the third, fourth, fifth read, just because his long developing routes and stuff. But yeah, still made almost 1,300 yards. Justin Ross, the big bright spot, 102 receptions, 1,252, 14 touchdowns, even though he missed 4 games due to injury. And then John Mechie, the other rookie receiver. Man, he could have had probably 11 or 1,200 too, but he decided to drop at least one pass per game or stuff like that. So yeah, that gets him to 951 and 5 touchdowns. And then Brevin Jordan has 907 yards, 4 touchdowns. Sad to see that he didn't get to 1,000, but still a good season. And Nico Collins got in there sometimes. I mean, he was kind of the backup to Justin Ross, and so he gets a few catches in those games, and then every once in a while a catch here and there. And I think he's fine. And then Marlon Mack was the receiving back. He wasn't all that explosive, I gotta say, but 5.5 yards after catch is okay, I guess. And then Dameon Pierce just had a few catches and nothing special. And then for sacks, we have, that's not okay. You're supposed to be one of the best tackles in the game and allowing 8 sacks, which is the most on the team. Granted, Austin Deculus and Titus Howard split time. Both of them together make up about 1,000 snaps, and that's an entire season on average, and they combined for 11 sacks. So yeah, that right tackle spot is horrifying as well. And then Charlie Heck, who was there in the absence of Laramie Tunsil, had pretty bad days as well. Justin Britt and AJ Can were okay in pass pro, I guess, but they sucked in the run game. And then Kenyon Green actually had a good season, I'd say. Could be better, but also could be worse. And then a bright spot is Max Sharping getting like 4 to 5 games worth of snaps and only allowing 1 sack in those games. That's big. And then Christian Kirksey was all over the field, 178 tackles. Blake Cashman, 141. So we have a linebacking duo which can rack up sacks. But with our run defense, both of them need to step it up, because this is just inflated numbers because our run defense is so bad. And yeah, Eric Murray gets in there as well, 140. That's interesting for a safety. Jerry Hughes had 20 TFLs. That's interesting. He was our best defender straight up, I'd say. And he showed it. And Jonathan Grenard on the other side, kind of disappointing a little bit, 16 TFLs. Malik Collins, I expect more from him as a run stopper. And same goes for Roy Lopez, who doesn't even make this list here. And Yeah, pass rush. Jerry Hughes, 12.5 sacks. He had a good season, I'd say, for somebody that is, I think he's 34 now. And yeah, Jonathan Grenard, 7.5 sacks. That is lower than I expected, especially if you take into consideration that a lot of our sacks were coverage sacks or forced by zone blitzes. And if you consider that, those numbers look a little bit weak, I gotta say. Even Jerry Hughes, 12.5 sacks, if you take a 3 or 4 sacks off for being coverage sacks, that's still an okay season, I guess. And then Desmond King, 4 sacks as a nickel backer here in blitzing duties as well. I had a lot of zone blitzes dialed up this season, and he got in there big time. And then Blake Cashman, same thing for him. On zone blitzes occasionally, he got into the pocket. And then Grugier Hill and Wallow, those were just goal line stand sacks. And then for interceptions, we had Derek Stingley. I think he could have caught a couple more and maybe secured that Rookie of the Year spot, but 3 interceptions is not going to cut it. And I still think he had a great season, locked down on his side. And yeah, Desmond King, great blitzer, also 2 picks, over 100 tackles. That's a solid season for a nickel corner. Love it. And then Jonathan Grenard randomly had one where he dropped into coverage. Eric Murray and Steven Nelson. Somebody who didn't get an interception is Jalen Petre, and I expected that, but he didn't. And then for pass deflections, we had Steven Nelson and Derek Stingley defend a lot of them. And I think that Nelson was kind of a liability, but also sometimes he made big plays and knocked the football away on 3rd downs and stuff. So kind of a inconsistent season. And then for forced fumble, we had nobody with multiple forced fumbles, but a lot as a team effort. And there's a lot of players in here, and it's not just defensive linemen that had forced fumbles. Christian Harris, Blake Cashman, and then Jerry Hughes here. Terrence Brooks, the backup safety. Eric Murray also had one. The sad part is we had so many forced fumbles, and only 3 were recovered by us. So yeah, that's not great, obviously. You want to recover a few more of them. But it was basically sheer luck, and we didn't have any. And I think it cost us a couple games too. And then we're going to look at some stats around the league. Josh Allen leads the league in passing. And Davis Mills, actually, I think he was 7th for yardage. Jonathan Taylor cracks 2,000 yards, has 22 touchdowns. Should be an MVP candidate. We're going to look at that later. Derrick Henry, he has... If you call 1,800 yards a down season, that's got to say something about Derrick Henry. But it's kind of a down season, I guess. Cooper Kupp also cracks 2,000 receiving yards, 18 touchdowns. So that's something to be excited about as an LA Ram. And then Stephon Diggs was number 2. Mike Evans, number 3. There's a lot of receivers here in the 12 and 1300s. Tim Patrick makes it as almost 1,300 yard receiver over Cortland Sutton. Maybe that guy was injured. Tyler Boyd, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and then Brandon Cooks and Justin Ross make it like in the, I guess it's top 15, I guess. So that's exciting. And yeah, I think John Mechie could have been in here with 1150 or something like that too, but he didn't want to catch all the passes. And then Christian Kirksey actually managed to lead the league in tackles, which is kind of absurd. But our run defense was so weak. He was the middle linebacker on the field for 100% of snaps. I didn't think he missed 1 snap on this entire season. And then Myles Garrett breaks the sack record, 23.5 over Von Miller, who had 21.5. So both of those guys, great seasons. Jadeveon Clowney had 19. That's kind of a late breakout for this guy. I think he's 29 or something. And then Jerry Hughes, yeah, I guess it's kind of an average season. And then in the NFC, it's Aaron Donald with 21.5 leading there. So Myles Garrett leading the league here in sacks, and Shaq Thompson leading the league in interceptions, 8 of them as a linebacker. Marlon Humphrey had 7, so he came in close second. Christian Fulton had 6, that's the 3rd place. And yeah, Derek Stingley was our best guy with 3, so nowhere to be seen. And then we're just gonna go over quickly to the pass deflections. But I guess Steven Nelson almost led the league. Josie Jewell is a little bit higher than him, but that's nice. And then forced fumbles. There's nothing special here. There's 2 guys who had 3 forced fumbles, and it was Okereke, so a guy in our league, and Jabril Peppers. And of course, if you enjoy these videos, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Let's go to the team stats, where the Texans had a bottom 10 offense. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't anything average or good either. I think the fact that we lost so many games forced us, or that we had such a bad run defense and we're down by 10 or 15 or 20 points a lot, forced us to throw it a lot. You're gonna see that in the stats here. I guess if we had a better defense, I think our offensive output would have probably been lower than that. And so these numbers are already inflated too. And especially this number, passing yardage, we're still like bottom 10 or... that's actually top 10. I'm sorry, wrong way around. That's top 10. And this number is so much inflated by the fact that we were down by so much in so many games. We had to pass it a lot in the 3rd and 4th quarters, and we had to abandon the run game, which you can see in this stat. Bottom 5 in rushing yardage. That is bad, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons that we couldn't keep ourselves in games and make it a 1-score game, go down there in the 4th quarter, 2-minute warning, and score the winning touchdown. We couldn't do that at all. And so, yeah, that's something we need to work about, and it starts with the offensive line. Points per game, that's still below average. It's not horrible, but 24.5 points, 24.1 points per game that's not enough in this offensive football league. And I hope we can shore up this offensive line in the offseason and let them handle this a little bit better. The Texans are right down the middle for passing touchdowns. We couldn't run it in the red zone at all. Mostly we were just losing yardage in the red zone. And so that leads us to this stat where we're last in rushing touchdowns. No surprise here. This offensive line is just not having the bodies to win this. We actually were 2nd in first downs gained. So when we were rolling with the ball, it was kind of a dink and dunk way to get down the field. And that led to us having a lot of first downs, but not the massive production that you hope to have when you have a bad defense. And that bad defense is actually last in the entire league in total yards allowed. We are dead last, 100 yards behind the 2nd worst team, and almost 200 yards behind the 3rd worst team. Passing yards allowed, it's not as bad. It's actually pretty good. Now that I think about it, that's top 10. And that's also due to the games scripted. We were down by so much. Our opponents were running it all the 3rd and 4th quarters. And that's what this stat is about. 3,056 rushing yards allowed. That is 179 point something per game. We allowed 180 rushing yards per game. And we allowed the most points over the course of this entire season. 60 points more than the Bengals and almost 100 points more than the 3rd worst team. Our defense was horrible, and it was mainly the run defense. QB sacks, we were not horrible. That is actually a top 10 value, but I already said it's not the pass rush. it's the coverage unit. We have a good coverage unit, some solid corners and safeties, and we forced a few coverage sacks. Fumble recoveries, as I already said, we had only 3. We forced a lot more. We should have had like 5 or 6, so that's middle of the road. And then interceptions, third to last in the league. That is also something that we need to address. We need to get more picks because our turnover ratio is less than 1 per game. And if you want to win, you need to win the turnover battles, and we didn't at all. Third down percentage, we're kind of middle of the road, slightly below average, but I think it's fine. We can do better. We should do better. But there's a lot of situations where we get in these 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12 situations, and then it's game over already because our offensive line doesn't hold up long enough to convert most of those. And yeah, we need to set ourselves up with better 3rd down situations and to raise the percentage that way. Offensive red zone efficiency is pretty bad. That's almost worse in the league, like bottom 5. 56% is not enough. You need to score a lot more than that. And that is just not enough. It's something we need to work on, and it comes down to the offensive line once again. And for defensive red zone percentage, we actually had the best red zone defense in the league. I actually can't believe it because our run defense is so bad, but somehow we managed to keep them out of the end zone a lot of times. And that is something that you can like base your future defense on. And then turnover difference, yeah, it's bad. It's so bad. We are dead last by a wide margin, and it was mainly due to all those fumbles lost. It's not even close. We have more than 3 times more fumbles lost than the second worst team in the league, which is the Cowboys, and more than 5 times more than anyone else. That is an absurd stat. We need to work on that, and it starts with protecting the quarterback, because that is probably where we lost most of our fumbles. Davis Mills also needs to work on ball security, I guess. The Texans also have not enough takeaways. We already talked about that. Need to recover a few more of those fumbles, a couple interceptions more, and we're good. And so that leads us to the league standings. We are dead last, 3-14. The Seahawks got 1 more win than us. And we're going to have the number 1 overall pick. And I'm so excited about that because I already know who I want to pick. Playoffs. We are in Super Bowl week, and for some reason the Bills didn't want to win this game against the 7-seed Broncos, and they move on. And then the Baltimore Ravens beat out the Dolphins, and the Colts managed to move on to the next round against the Chargers, where they are eliminated on against a very good Baltimore Ravens team that moves on to the championship game. And the Broncos didn't just beat the 2 seed, they also beat the 1 seed. So the 1 and 2 seeds are one and done. And they move on to face the Ravens, and they did not win that. In the NFC, the Packers put on 49 points against the Bears, beating out Justin Fields by a wide margin, and they somehow made it into the playoffs, I guess. I didn't even realize that. Justin Fields in the playoffs. And then the Eagles also move on, and the Rams. So all the division winners move on, and the Cowboys are beat hard by the Rams. The Packers once again put up over 40 points against the Eagles there, and then the Rams managed to beat out the 1 seed Bucks. So both 1 seeds are one and done. And then the Rams move on. They put 31 points on the board against the Cowboys, then 35 against the Bucks, and then 31 again against the Green Bay Packers. And that's the Super Bowl. Rams versus Ravens. And we're going to talk about that in the next episode. The Pro Bowl. I don't expect to have a lot of people in here, but yeah, Josh Allen, obviously the #1 guy, having the most yardage and I think touchdowns as well. Running backs, Dameon Pierce, we didn't run it enough for him to be in this conversation. So Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, no surprise there. One thing that's kind of sad is that our fullback didn't make it, but it's okay. He didn't have one run or one catch this entire season. Andy Janovich, but he's a good blocker, and that's just not something that is represented in these Pro Bowl votings. And then Justin Ross is #2 on receivers, so that's exciting. We have him in this Pro Bowl voting. Sadly, Brandon Cooks didn't make it. He had a few more yards, but not enough touchdowns, I guess. And then for tight ends, we have Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and Indy tight end Mo Alley Cox. So he makes it as well. Had a good day against us in that last game. And then for offensive linemen, I thought Laramie Tunsil maybe would have a chance, but I guess he had allowed a few too many sacks. And then Quentin Nelson, Joe Tooney, Corey Linsley, Creed Humphrey. Nothing all that surprising. Lyle Collins, Braden Smith. Let's get to the defense. And it's sad to see Jerry Hughes didn't make it, but I'm not all that surprised. And we wanted to look out for Christian Kirksey for all those tackles he had, but he did not make it. Instead, Bobby Okereke and Jayon Brown from both of our division rivals are gonna make it in here. And yeah, no Christian Kirksey. So yeah, and cornerbacks, Derek Stingley didn't have enough picks, and Steven Nelson either. So there is none of our guys in the cornerback room, and in the safety room, it doesn't look well either. So yeah, Justin Reed makes it. That's kind of sad because he was a Houston Texan, and I still would love to have him, but he's not here. And so Justin Ross, in the end, is the only guy from the Texans to make it to the Pro Bowl. And isn't that just a little bit sad? Let's look at the annual awards. Josh Allen is the MVP, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. It's the usual pack. Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford. No surprises down this list. Or maybe Derek Carr at 10, I guess, is kind of a surprise. Let's look at the NFC. Cooper Kupp is Offensive Player of the Year, and deservedly so, with a 2,000-yard campaign. And Aaron Donald makes it for the defense of the Rams. Shaq Thompson only in second. He didn't have enough tackles or interceptions. He had 8 interceptions. Still doesn't make Defensive Player of the Year, I guess. Drake London, Jamison Williams, Jahan Dotson. Lots of rookie receivers. London wins it in the end. Kayvon Thibodeau is the Defensive Rookie of the Year in the NFC. Aiden Hutchinson is the guy in second place. Andrew Booth is third. Had a few picks in there. Kind of an exciting season for him. And then Brian Asamoah also makes it for the Vikings. So there's a couple surprises here. And then just looking through these things, Rodgers wins quarterback, Kamara running back, Cooper Kupp receiver, Zach Martin O-line. It's just no surprises here at all. I guess Royce Newman being the number 3 offensive lineman here for the Packers is kind of a surprise, but other than that, we're just going to continue. Aaron Donald here, Rashawn Gary as a pass rusher, Shaq Barrett in second, Shaq Thompson only in 5th, which is kind of ridiculous. And Jalen Johnson for DBs. That's kind of a breakout season for him. Nice to see. That's how they made it to the playoffs, I guess. And then for the AFC, Josh Allen wins it all. MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. We don't have anybody in there. Not even Davis Mills with almost 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns. And then Myles Garrett, no surprise there. He breaks the sack record. He shatters the sack record. But this is the good times. Justin Ross wins Rookie of the Year. John Mechie in 3rd. Dameon Pierce in 4th. So we have had a bit of a positive ending, at least here. We have a few young guys that are breaking out. And then down the list, there is a few more of our division rivals, Hassan Haskins, for instance. For the defense, I think if Stingley would have picked up one or two more passes, picked off one or two more passes, I think he would have had it, because Devin Lloyd didn't have a great season by any stretch of the imagination. But I guess, yeah, it's not going to be enough. 3 picks. Trayvon Walker for the Jags, the number 1 overall pick, just 9th in this voting. Josh Allen also wins best quarterback, no surprise there. Mills doesn't crack the top 10, no surprise there. Jonathan Taylor, 2,000-yard campaign, no surprise there. Joe Mixon in 2nd, Nick Chubb in 3rd, Derrick Henry in 4th, no Dameon Pierce. And then Stephon Diggs is the best receiver, and Justin Ross comes in 2nd, just about behind him. That's kind of sad. I would have loved to see him get that number 1 spot. And Brandon Cooks doesn't even crack the top 10. He doesn't have the touchdowns. That's kind of sad. But moving on to the offensive line, obviously none of our guys make it there. Laramie Tunsil allowed too many sacks, and of all the other guys, there's just none that is even remotely close to being average in this league, let alone being a Pro Bowler or the offensive lineman of the year. And then for the defensive line, we at least have Jerry Hughes, so that's the only other bright spot of these votings. And for linebacker, yeah, Christian Kirksey doesn't even crack the top 10, even though he's leading the league in tackles with 174. That is kind of ridiculous. And then for DBs, no Derek Stingley, sadly. So yeah, nothing to win there. And Fairbairn makes it as the number 4 kicker. Justin Ross gets a couple upgrades here due to his great season, great performance, and then winning Rookie of the Year, being 2nd in Receiver of the Year. And that's a nice upgrade, getting some deep route running, release, spec catching, and an ability slot as well. Because as you will see shortly, there is something interesting happening here, but let's spend that 2nd upgrade here, plus 3 deep route running and plus 2 release. I love it. This is an awesome upgrade, and I'm looking forward to him being a top receiver in this league for a long time to come if he continues on this pace. He was catching everything, and now he has superstar dev. And yeah, still only 22 years old here in his rookie season. A 6'4" receiver, kind of a slow receiver. 88 speed is not great or anything, but his release and his catching ratings are getting up there, and I think even his route runnings are so solid, and we're gonna pour the next few upgrades into short route running. I can guarantee you that. And then Jerry Hughes is the other surprise. He somehow managed to get superstar dev, and that is really surprising to me, I gotta say. 12.5 sacks is no stat line that's gonna blow you out of the water, but yeah. And let's go over the team. This is the last thing we're gonna do in this episode. We're gonna just talk about what this team looks like ahead of the offseason. Davis Mills, probably not gonna replace him. I'm not impressed with the quarterback talent in that next draft class. Marlon Mack is somebody that is probably gonna go because he didn't really convince me at all. And Dameon Pierce is our number 1 running back. I'm gonna find a different, more interesting back with maybe a little more speed in the offseason. And Marlon Mack just lost his step there. And Rex Burkhead, Royce Freeman. There's just no exciting running back room, and I'm gonna change that in the offseason. Then Brandon Cooks is the top receiver of this team, and he is going to be the number 1 next year too. But there might be a scenario where we are gonna put Brandon Cooks in the slot to give him more targets, because John Mechie had a lot of targets this year, and I think that it's probably time to put Brandon Cooks there. Make Justin Ross the number 1, make Nico Collins the number 2 on the other side as an outside guy, and maybe have a little bit more upside that way. So yeah, kind of interesting thought. I'm gonna see how the free agency is gonna go. Maybe we find a nice receiver in the draft or something. So we're gonna see how this is gonna go in the off season, but I'm kind of intrigued with those 3 receivers, and then Philip Dorsett, maybe keeping him around as a 4th guy, or maybe John Mechie as the 4th guy. And yeah, Andy Janovich is our fullback. He is bound to be re-signed, I guess, in the re-signing stage. He's a good fullback and nice blocking abilities. And then Justin Ross and John Mechie, yeah, the rookie receivers. I think that John Mechie does not really have a future. He has that drops passes trait, and I think that's just not something I want to build around. It just cost us too many first downs this season, and I think he may be a backup receiver for a little bit, but yeah, Brevin Jordan, our number 1 tight end, not gonna change anything about that. He looks really solid. I like the athleticism, and he catches everything that I throw his way. And yeah, let's go to the worst part of this team, the offensive line. Titus Howard and Austin Deculus are the biggest weak spot on this team, but also Justin Britt and AJ Cann on the inside. Both of those guys need to be replaced. Maybe not all of them this offseason, but sometime in the near future, maybe next offseason. But all 3 of those guys need to be gone. And Kenyon Green and Laramie Tunsil are the 2 guys I'm trying to build around. We're gonna see how this is gonna go, but I think that Tunsil really needs to get it together next season and be a better pass protector than he has been, because his ratings are a lot higher than what he played like this year. And let's look at the defense as well. We have Jerry Hughes. He's still under contract, and Agbanya Okoronkwo. So there's a couple nice edge rushers on the left side, and I'm not looking to really move on, although I don't know if Okoronkwo's contract might be up. Ross Blacklock in the middle. I think he's the one defensive tackle that needs to be here next season too. Thomas Booker is right now more of a backup. He's not really starting material. And then Malik Collins, defensive tackle number 1, kind of a disappointment. I think he needs to go. And then Roy Lopez, he's just a nose tackle. He's going to be a run stopper. And for the right side, from the edge rushers, we have Grenard, Green, and Zuniga. Zuniga, whom I signed at the end of the preseason because the Jets put him on the practice squad, and I thought to myself, why not sign this guy and give him a chance? And yeah, cornerbacks, we have Derek Stingley. He's going to be the number 1 for a long time probably. And Desmond King is the slot for now. He is getting up there in age, but I think for now we have one of the best slot, maybe the best slot corner in the league. Kendall Sheffield's contract is up as well. I like his skill set. I might re-sign him at a low cost, maybe in the free agency period. And then Steven Nelson is the number 2 corner for now, but probably gonna replace him because he doesn't have the upside and he's getting up there in age. And then Tavier Thomas, I think his contract is up as well. So between him and Sheffield, I might have to choose one of those guys. And then for strong safety, we have Eric Murray. Gotta replace him. He's been kind of weak. He's just not exciting at all. He's just a good tackler, and that's all. Jalen Reeves-Maybin and Garrett Wallow, probably gonna move on from those guys too. Getting older, not having the upside. Christian Harris, he has the upside, but he has been kind of disappointing. Didn't show up this season at all. He had 1 forced fumble and not even enough tackles to crack, like, I think 70 or 80. So that's not gonna be enough. And yeah, Kirksey is gonna be here for 1 more year. And Blake Cashman. So Kirksey and Cashman are probably gonna be the duo to go next season. Maybe we find another guy in the draft or in the free agency pool, but we'll see. And then Jalen Petre, really disappointing season for him. He had a few pass deflections. His coverage wasn't bad, but his run support was, and he wasn't making any big plays either. He was just kind of disappearing every game. And I think that he might be, in a couple of years when Desmond King gets older and maybe regresses, Jalen Petre might be his replacement as a nickel corner. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe for more Texans franchise. See you in the next episode. Until then, spread some love.